So the Singapore government recently released some data showing that an estimated 20% of young professionals are leaving their jobs to take extended breaks from work. Now, this is a trend that we're seeing in other countries as well, including the United States. But it's not just the Gen Zs that are doing this. A poll from LinkedIn of 23,000 workers shows 2/3 of people will eventually need to take a long break from work, most commonly to raise children. However, this does not stop the persistence of a long-held stigma that still exists about gaps in employment, something some people say needs to change because it simply doesn't mirror the reality of modern life. Now, to flip the script here, LinkedIn launched a feature last year called Career Breaks. And in it, it really invites workers to own these breaks rather than hide them on their profiles. Now, workers can choose amongst 13 common reasons that you may need to take a break from work, from travel to layoffs to caregiving. And so far, 1 million people have used it, especially in the United States, India, and Western Europe. But to find out if Southeast Asia workers are ready for this, CNBC teamed up with Melio Insights to survey some 6,000 people in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And what we found was that work breaks, very common here too. 71% of people saying that they've taken one, most commonly to transition careers or for health and wellness reasons. Now, the vast majority said breaks aren't viewed favorably in their societies, but overwhelmingly they wished that there was more acceptance and embracing of this idea. And now finally, are they worried about what their future bosses will think? Well, absolutely. Nearly 9 in 10 said that they are concerned about what a gap in employment may signal to a future employer.
So how prevalent are these attitudes across Southeast Asia, and how much pushback is there then from the corporate sector or latitude and building in some allowance for this?
Yeah, so we talked with different hiring professionals who said this really does need to change, but they were realistic, saying, look, there still is this stigma, so there's a reason that people are concerned. But when we looked at the data across Southeast Asia, it was really fascinating because I would say the stark differences to me really stood out between respondents from Singapore and Vietnam. So in Singapore, we saw a wide acceptance for this idea, especially for health and wellness. They were the most likely to accept this for that reason. However, the data showed that they were the least likely to actually take a break. And when we cored into that, we found it was really because not worrying about necessarily what an employer would think, but just the cost of living. And I think that's reflective of how much it costs to live here.
Very true.
Now, the Vietnam respondents, very different story. They were the most likely to take a break. They were the most accepting of it. And they were the least likely to say that they felt the need to hide it or sort of fudge the numbers on their CVs. But I would say the one country that sort of stood out is maybe not being quite there yet in terms of embracing this idea, Thailand. Just the numbers showed a reservation about taking time off from work for nearly every reason except for one. Thai respondents were twice as likely to say that it's perfectly acceptable to take a break from work, a long break from work, in fact, to bereave the death of a loved one.
Cultural reasons.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's interesting to see India on that listing as well as one of the countries where this is accepted. Honestly.
Yeah, and you know, this story actually came about. I was researching another story, and sometimes this happens, and I'm looking up a source, and I saw this source had a health and wellness break in his LinkedIn profile. And I thought, well, what is that? I've never seen that. And I sort of loved the fact that this man was owning it. So I reached out to him. He said he has not been questioned about it. It has not hampered his job prospects. And then we started on looking more into this topic and seeing how people felt about it.
Okay. I think I'll say this very quickly. I know we have to move on, but the pandemic and the rise of the digital nomad has probably paved the way for a lot of these attitudes to change.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think I need to call in a break with my boss. Do you think she's listening?
Or maybe that ship has sailed.
I need a health and mental well break. We're not in our 20s and 30s anymore. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit, exhausted right now. So, maybe a few months off would be good. So adios, guys. I'll see you in a bit, yeah?